Welcome back. We are here with John Wu. He's the president of Ava Labs. John, welcome to our little sit-down show here.
Eleanor, thank you for having me. Thank you, Bob.
You're very welcome. How's it going? How's your conference?
The summit in London was unbelievable, and I've been doing other conferences like repeatedly every day since then. Everything is fantastic. The space, I think, is really at an inflection point, and it's a really fun time to be in crypto.
And you've got a great panel coming up, too.
Oh, yeah. Right
Yes.
after here, I think I go right on stage.
Yes. Oh, gosh, really? I was like, I'm moderating that. I think it's 11:30, isn't it? I hope it's
whatever.
11:30.
Yeah,
Okay. You got me worried there for a second. Let's talk about that change, John. We're at an inflection point.
Yeah.
Why do you say that? What are you seeing?
Well, I mean, frankly, crypto has been for crypto for a long time, crypto native people. And there's a lot happening on chain. Sure, there are a lot of users, according to Coinbase, but they're more investors. They hold Bitcoin. They hold alternatives like Avalanche's token. What's happening now is the hope that regulation and stable coins being the first one, and then market structure bill,
Right.
that will allow traditional financial institutions as well as Web 2 enterprises to actually feel comfortable in using the technology and actually explore benefits of the blockchain technology.
Yeah, just from the endorsement value of the government sanctifying everything.
Absolutely. And I think people forget, but back in the 90s, there was a couple of bills, and this is why Al Gore claims he invented the internet. Obviously, he didn't, but he spearheaded a few, the Telecom Act in 1996, and there was other acts before that, 1991 and 92, that gave clarity for the rails of how the internet can operate, standards for sending messages around, credit card payments, etc. And when that happens, that gives call it the cover for large enterprises to enter the space. And that's happening right now in the world of crypto. That's why it's so exciting for Ava Labs and Avalanche, because we've always built the technology and the architecture of the blockchain so that we can create real-world use cases and utility. And this is why it is kind of like the time is ready for Ava Labs and Avalanche.
Explain that a little bit more, because the original intent was to work with corporations on what use cases they came up with and build the infrastructure so they could do that. And you had a unique strategy about that in the beginning.
Right. Well, so I'll break it down from technology to business development. On the technology side, the underlying chain was developed out of Cornell University by a well-known distributed systems professor, Dr. Eamon Gunseer. You know,
We interviewed him on Crypto in America 2 episodes ago. He was wonderful at your summit in London.
Yes.
So, yes.
And he and his 2 PhD students wanted to create a new consensus protocol that can solve some of the scale, speed, security issues we saw with Ethereum. In 2017, when Ethereum had all the activity with CryptoKitties and ICOs, it stalled and the prices got really big. And he realized that technology needed to be more scalable, but didn't want to lose the other aspects that help the blockchain and Web3. So that's where Avalanche protocol came from. So the technology was built to solve some of the speed issues and pricing issues, but he also had the vision to make the architecture so that it's more of a network of networks. So that when you want to develop your application, kind of like Facebook developing Facebook on top of iOS, you have a customized operating system or customized virtual execution environment for whatever your application is important for. So if you're a traditional finance company, you need compliance and regulation embedded into the operating system. If you are a gaming company that wants fast transactions going on, you don't want your execution environment to be tempered by someone else's activity on a different chain. So it allows you to build your custom, call it blockchain, with your application. And that's huge, because the more blockchains we have in this world, the better it is for the network of networks.
You guys have focused on gaming, obviously, aside from the many other things that Avalanche focuses on and invites on chain. How are you seeing that right now in this sort of new regulatory space? I remember the reason I asked this question is because when I was first introduced to Avalanche a couple years ago, it was through a gaming company that used your chain. So I'm just curious to know, I think the original theory with blockchain was that the gaming industry was going to kind of onboard all the Web3 adoption was going to come through gamers, right? Is that something you're seeing still, or is it more real-world use cases?
It's less of that gaming company you saw 2 or 3 years ago was play to earn kind of thing.
Right.
Those were fine, but the gameplay itself wasn't that sophisticated. What you're seeing now is sophisticated, AAA publishers or games that have been around for a long time that are now deploying instances or versions on a blockchain to take advantage of the blockchain technology, especially Avalanche technology. And I'll give you a perfect example. There's a company that's publicly traded in Asia and Japan. It's called Nexon. They have a game called Maple Story. Maple Story has 200 million users. It's been around for 20 plus years. It has $3 billion of gross revenues. Every few years, they figure out how to reinvent itself and keep the longevity of the game to continue.
Yeah, that's shocking.
Yeah. The latest version of that is basically putting an instance of that on the Avalanche blockchain.
Yep.
And the reason that it's great to put it on the blockchain is because what kids who play games now and other gamers want is not just to be a user and a player. They want to be creators in the game. They want to create their own instances, create their own assets. And because blockchain is open and permissionless, it's like Lego pieces of code. You can take that, borrow someone else's code effectively and build on top of it. It's almost like if you're watching a movie, you suddenly can say, wait, there could be 10 different endings, and you create a certain ending, and then if people go to your ending more than someone else's ending, you get rewarded for that. So that is a lot easier to do and saves the corporation of Nexon a lot of money if the creators also develop, as opposed to them hiring people to create standard features that lowers their margin, and they're not sure if the users actually want it.
Avalanche has been busy lately. Let's talk about some of the initiatives that you guys have launched. There was an announcement that FIFA is partnering with you guys. Talk to me about that.
Yeah.
Some of the other initiatives that you guys are up to.
Well, super excited about that because we're going to enter the World Cup soon, and FIFA is huge.
Next year, right?
Yep,
It's coming
next
to the
year.
U.S., yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the first use case of it is more of a simple marketplace for digital collectibles of players, teams, etc. But there are big plans where they're going to take this into what I call transforming loyalty into royalty. So one of the things that happened in the last cycle in crypto was this NFT boom. The NFT boom is, you can say what you want about digital collectibles, the new version of that. The old version was CryptoKitties, the new version is meme coins. You can say what you want, but the NFT world, that digital collectible basically announced to the world a different technology. It was basically the unique non-fungible token, a unique identifier. And that's lent itself to so many use cases from, in FIFA's case, they want each individual to be able to take those collectibles and trade them and make it unique so that they know that there's only 10 of these digital collectibles of such a player, and they don't have to worry about fraud or copying of that player, like fake digital collectibles. To the fact that they realize, all these brands have realized, the funny thing about blockchain and a good wallet associated with that is actually it's a very good CRM tool. They get to engage with their fans. They get to incentivize the fans. If the fans become creators, that's the royalty part. Loyalty turning into royalty.
Right.
The old ways is that if you fly or you go to a hotel, because of your actual use of it, you get points, so you can hopefully get a free night after 5 nights staying there. But suddenly now, because everything is open and you can track how people are, if you're an influencer and you get other people to go stay because of your guerrilla, call it influence, then you also get points. So you become a royalty creator on it. And that's getting more engagement from users. Going back to the early thing about gaming, users who become creators have more engagement and increases the wallet share for a lot of these companies, and that's what we're seeing. So FIFA is experimenting with all of these different methods to transform loyalty into royalty. In a weird way, because the smart contract on an Avalanche blockchain is actually a great CRM tool, it saves them on the advertising costs as well. Because I'm directly engaged with you and you,
Absolutely.
I don't have to go back to Facebook or Google to reacquire you for the next game in the World Cup or something.
No,
really
that's the
interesting.
genius of engagement.
Yeah.
How has the feedback been from TradFi institutions that are experimenting or working with Avalanche?
literally since the beginning of this year, it's again exploded.
Yeah.
First, it was 2 or 3 years ago. They wanted to experiment, do a lot of proof of concepts, learn the technology.
Right. And you were among the leaders in
We've
this.
always been there. We've worked
major
with
institutions.
Apollo, J.P. Morgan. As much as Jamie Dimon talks badly about the asset
About
class,
Bitcoin, yeah.
they use the blockchain a lot. T-Row, Wisdom Tree, all of these continue. So we've worked a lot with them. But 2 or 3 years ago, it was more about proof of concepts, understanding the technology and the benefits. Recently, it's about how do we take it and actually tokenize stuff
And
that
deploy
people can deploy.
case
Yeah.
uses, use
Case in
cases.
point, BlackRock BIDL, which is a tokenized money market fund. Then you have Apollo's credit fund that they've tokenized, and all of these things are actually being put into market. And you can choose. You can buy the money market fund in the traditional manner, or you can use the tokenized version of it on Avalanche. Same with the private credit funds of Apollo. You can choose to do it there in the traditional world, or you can do it on a blockchain-enabled world from Avalanche. And the amount of savings for the issuer, Apollo or anyone else, is dramatic. Apollo said, you're effectively taking 3,000 steps down to one automated click, and you save 25, 30% in costs for issuing that fund.
You have gigantic industries that you're already working with. Entertainment, you just talked about, sports and entertainment and financial services. How are you, I imagine there are other industries too. How are you prioritizing where you move? Because the opportunities are expanding so rapidly.
Well, I think just like any other industry, there are surveys and feedback from consumers. But in the blockchain world, because it's open and permissionless, you have a community. And Ava Labs, the team behind Avalanche, is always talking to the community and the developers in the community.
Yeah.
So how did gaming come about? Sure, we've designed an architecture that would benefit certain industries more than others, but frankly, a lot of the stuff that comes about is because the developer community realizes the technology is good for their specific goals, and we get feedback from our community, and then we double down on that. That's kind of how it works.
I mean, it's amazing. The developer community is actually guiding where you're going, and your involvement. At what point do you all get involved in working with a customer? Is when the developers have already developed enough that there's momentum and you shift your attention?
There's 2 types of developers. The answer is there's 2 ways to get involved and 2 ways to help developers. There's the smaller developers, which is like 2 smart entrepreneurs who will have a good idea and they just want to deploy. When we see a lot of those people in the same, call it, area, the team at Ava Labs will develop features and services for that area. The other way is for the bigger guys, the people who really want to deploy very complex, difficult things. They need a lot of service. And then we have a thing called Ava Cloud, which is more of a, think of it as Red Hat for Linux, where it's software services companies that help the integration for big companies who have a different type of roadmap, a more complex roadmap, have Nexon, 200 million users that need to have the same good experience as they do on the traditional rails as a blockchain rail. So there's 2 types of, call it, service.
What's the biggest thing you're watching out of Washington, D.C. at the moment?
Well, 2 things. There is the stablecoin bill, and then also obviously the market structure of the Clarity Act. I think those 2 are on everyone's top of mind.
Yep.
And a lot's going to change how a lot of this development and the direction and the speed of adoption, frankly, just from those 2 things coming up in the next year or so.
Yeah, and just for some context, we have stablecoin bill, Genius Act, potentially passing the Senate next week, and then market structure we have hearings on this week and a potential markup next week. So things are moving along. It'll be interesting to see how that all plays out, whether we get the August deadline, President Trump's August deadline, but at least it's a lot better than it was 4 years ago, right?
Absolutely. I mean,
Friendlier.
I've been to D.C. I think I've talked to 10 to 20 different senators and reps. There is a urgency to meet the administration's deadline.
Yeah.
And they are working really fast to try to do it. It's completely different from a year ago where it wasn't a conversation that seemed like there was any urgency whatsoever.
Would you say the regulators are up to speed education-wise? Would you see there's like a growth in understanding of blockchain technology and crypto now?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Everyone in industry likes to think they know so much more, and that's because they're industry. You're a domain expert. You're supposed to know more than them. But
Right.
I am always, I've been very pleasantly surprised with the knowledge that people in DC have of this space. The good news is, even though certain senators and reps have changed hands, their staff who wrote the original Genius Act or Stablecoin Acts, et cetera, those people have not really changed that
Right.
much.
Yeah.
So
And they do most of the work.
they do a
that's
lot of the
really
work.
interesting.
So they haven't, there's a lot of continuity that people don't realize.
Awesome. I want to ask you so many more things, but
I know.
we will definitely have you back. We're going to have you on Crypto in America in a couple weeks' time,
Can't
John.
wait.
So looking forward to that very much. And thank you for joining us today.
Yeah,
for having
thanks
me.
so much.
We'll see you
Great to
soon.
see you.
Nice to see you both.
This show is being brought to you by our sponsor, Trueflation. Professional investors and economists and probably any casual observers know that government inflation statistics are only an approximation of what real inflation is. Not only that, but the government has a conflict of interest because high inflation can be so damaging to the economy, the deficit, and our $36 trillion in debt. Trueflation collects over 80 million pricing data points. Most are updated daily to reveal inflation with precision for asset managers, governments, companies, and the general public. Check them out at trueflation.com. We're proud to be sponsored by Foundation. They've created Passport, one of the top-rated Bitcoin hardware wallets, proudly made in the USA. It's fully open source and air-gapped, meaning your Bitcoin stays completely offline and secure. The shocking Bybit exchange hack shows why holding some Bitcoin offline diversifies risk. Now they're launching Passport Prime, your all-in-one solution for not only Bitcoin, but all passwords and 2FA security. Head to foundation.xyz to secure your digital future. Hey, if you like this clip, please hit the subscribe button. You might also want to check out some of the clips I've posted with my many other guests. My interviews all address the simple question, how screwed are we? We ask experts about the problems that make Americans so pessimistic today, but we also explore why there's never been a better time to have been born than today. Join us for perspective on today's challenges and opportunities.